Good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers and then we'll start with our Wednesday's topic. And this topic is going to last more than one class. So I'll see in 45 minutes how much I can cover, and then we'll continue next week also. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha Tat Savitra Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Sadgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vavatu Sehna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. Death is the most common phenomena in nature, and yet the least understood fact. It is one of the most difficult problems of philosophy, because there is no direct evidence usually available as to what really happens in and after death. The practice of yoga enables us to observe the phenomena of death through the intuitive eye, which is called Divya Chakshu. Maharishi Vashiht claims to have known everything directly and speaks on death upon his own experience. So death is a subject which is of the deepest interest to everyone, because one day or the other all must die. But still the terror of death overshadows the lives of all human beings. Rishi Patanjali called it one of the kleshas. And in Sanskrit, he called it abhinivesh. You remember those 5 klesh? Avidya, Asmita, Rag, Dvesh, and abhinivesh. This abhinivesh brings constantly unnecessary sorrow, suffering, and also the anxiety to the survivors who are anxious to know about the fate of the departed souls also. We often wonder, where did they go? What happened? What is that unknown place? So the one aim of all yoga sadhaks is to face death fearlessly as well as joyfully. This is what I read from my own Gurudevji's scriptures also. A yogi or a sage or even a real aspirant has no fear of death. In fact, he wrote that he used the word chav. He said, "Mujhe mrityu ka chav hai." Looking forward to it. Not pessimistically, but optimistically and with the full knowledge. Death is painful to a worldly person. A desireless person never weeps when he dies. And a full-blown jnani never dies. Remember, full-blown jnani. And that is, Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. So our highest duty is to prepare for a peaceful life and conquer the fear of death as yoga students. Conquest of fear of death, because conquest of the death is the highest utility of all spiritual sadhana. End of the cycle of birth. If you want everlasting bliss, live in the eternal Atma and be happy forever. Because that is the goal of a yoga student. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 8, he said, having come to me, these Mahatmas come not again to birth, which is the place of pain and non-eternity, because they have gone to the highest bliss. If you remember in Sanskrit, this is the verse number 15. Mam upete punarjanam dukh alyam ashashvatam. Because when we are born in a house of dukkha. Sure, there are moments of sukh also, but there are more dukkha. Dukh alyam ashashvatam, non-eternal. Na apnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam kata. So a person who has conquered death is a Mahatma, a wise person. When we go through the pages of Mahabharata, we see that Bhisham Pitama had death in his hands actually. That's why Ichha Mrityu. So that means he could not die without his permission. Ichha Mrityu. That was a boon given to him. Another story, Savitri brought back her husband Satyavan to life through her power of chastity. This is the history. These are the life stories of yogis. Markandeya also, Rishi Markandeya conquered death through worship of Lord Shiva. We are familiar with that story too. That's why a yogi guru says you can conquer death through devotion, through knowledge, and through the power of brahmacharya. When your mind is roaming in Brahma, that's what brahmacharya is. When you are so connected with Brahma, there's no death for Brahma, so there's no death for you. What is death for a common person? Death is a separation of the soul from the physical body. Death becomes the starting point of a new life. Death does not end your personality and self-consciousness. These are the facts from our scriptures. Birth and death are jugglery of Maya. He who is born begins to die. He who dies begins to live. Life is death, and death is life. So birth and death are merely doors of entry and exit on the stage of this world. In reality, no one comes, no one goes. Because if we are part of Brahma, Brahma is eternal. Brahma alone exists. So that's why it's called a jugglery of Maya. Just as you move from one house to another house, the soul passes from one body to another to gain experience. Just as a person casting off worn out garments takes new ones, so the dweller in this body, casting off worn out bodies, enters into others which are new. This is the cycle. So death is not the end of life. Life is one continuous, never-ending process. Death is only a passing and necessary phenomena which every soul has to pass to gain experience for its further evolution. So if it's so necessary, why we are afraid of it? Saints say death is like sleep and birth is like waking up. We look forward to sleeping at night because in the morning we are fresh again, fully rested. That's what the death is. A man of discrimination and wisdom is not afraid of death. The Supreme Soul or Paramatma is deathless, decayless, timeless, causeless, and spaceless. We read these facts in the scriptures. It is the source and substratum for this body, mind, and the whole world. So sure, there is a death for the physical body only. And what is this physical body? Physical body is just a compound of 5 elements. How can there be a death for the eternal soul, which is beyond time, space, and causation? He who realizes the eternal soul, because that is our goal, to know who we are. So a person who has realized the eternal soul, which is beyond all sound, all sight, all taste, all touch, which is formless and attributeless, which is beyond Prakriti, beyond nature, which is beyond 3 bodies. What are 3 bodies? The physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. The Sathul Sharir, the Suksham Sharir, and the Karan Sharir. Beyond those Sharirs. And 5 sheaths also. No matter which way we look at these bodies, whether we divide them into 3 bodies or 5 sheaths. 5 sheaths are what? The Annamaya Kosh, the Pranamaya Kosh, the Manomaya Kosh, the Vigyanmaya Kosh, and the Anandamaya Kosh, which is infinite and unchanging, which is a self-luminous. If we have realized this, we will free ourselves from the fear of death. And this is the reason we do the yoga sadhana, to know our real nature, who we are, deathless, decayless. So remember, the death is not the end of life. I'm talking about the physical death here, which we all must go through. The individual souls or jivs build various bodies to display their activities and gain experience from this world. They enter the bodies, they leave them. When do they leave? When they become unfit to live in it. They build new bodies again and leave them again in the same manner. We have been through countless bodies. Not just the human body. There are so many different other bodies too. We've been traveling according to our own experiences through different bodies. This is known as a transmigration of souls. Man has always tried to tear aside the veil and know the course of events subsequent to the death of an individual. Various theories have been put forward, but it cannot be said that he has succeeded in tearing aside the veil that covers the life beyond. Because with this material mind and intellect, we cannot tear it down. Natural death, it is said, is unknown to unicellular organism. When life on earth consisted of these creatures, death was unknown. The phenomena appeared only when from unicellular, the multicellular evolved. It is also known that after the cessation of an individuality, parts of the organization can continue to function. And our rishis, they have given the names of that pran, which keeps those functions alive even after the departure of the Jivatma. So remember, death is not the end of life, it's merely cessation of an important individuality. Life flows on to achieve its conquest of the universal. Life flows till it merges into the eternal, which is called moksha, mukti, liberation. Let's look at a little bit about the process of death, because something which will definitely happen to us, we should know a little bit about it. Rishi Vashiht says in Yog Vashiht, that's another beautiful scripture. These days we are studying that in our Monday classes. Yog Vashiht. It's a conversation mainly between Guru Vashiht and a student who is Ram. Dashrath Putra Ram. In Yog Vashiht, Rishi Vashiht says, when on account of the diseases of the body, its nadis lose their vigor and become unable to expand and contract in order to exhale and inhale air, the body loses its harmony and becomes restless. The inhaled air does not then properly come out, nor does the exhaled air re-enter the body. So respiration stops. Stopping of the respiration, the creature becomes senseless and dead. All the desires and ideas of the individual are then withdrawn within himself. That individual, with all his vasanas within himself, is called a jeev. Okay, that is a jeev. When the body is dead, the prana of the individual with the jeev within come out of the body and roam in the air. The atmospheric air is full of a number of such prans which have jeevs within them. These jeevs themselves having their respective world experiences potentially existing within them. And Rishi Vashiht says, I can see them. because he had that intuitive wisdom. At this time, the individual with all his vasanas within him is called a preta. What are the signs of death? It is very difficult to find out the real signs of death, actually. Some people say stoppage of the heartbeat, stoppage of the pulse or breathing are not the actual signs of death. Stoppage of the heartbeats, pulse, and respiration, or even the rigidity of the limbs, or the clamming sweat on the body, or the absence of the warmth of the body, sure, they are popular signs of the death. Sometimes doctors, they try to find out whether there is a corneal reflex in the eye or not. They try to bend the legs. These signs are not the real signs of death, actually. Where there was a cessation of breathing and the beating of heart, people have still revived after some time. Hot yogis have put in a box and buried underneath the earth for 40 days. And they have been taken out and they revived. You might think that a person is dead, whereas he may be in a state of ecstasy, samadhi, trance. These states resemble death. The outward signs are similar. The physical body is composed of 5 great elements, which are called Mahabhuts: earth, water, fire, air, and space. The Devatas or the gods are endowed with a divine or a luminous body. That's why it's called the fire tattva is predominant in them. They're called angels or the divine beings. In human beings, the earth tattva is predominant. That's why we can see this physical body and we relate ourselves with the physical bodies. And in the case of aquatic animals, the element of water predominates. In the case of birds, the element of air predominates. And hardness of the body is due to the portion of earth in our body. The fluidity is due to the portion of water. The warmth that you feel in the body is due to the fire. Moving to and fro and such ether activities are due to the air. Space is due to akash or ether. But the Jivatma, the individual soul, is different from these 5 elements. So after death, these elements are dissolved. They reach their primordial sources from where they have come from. Because there's a storehouse of these sources in the nature. The element of earth goes and joins its storehouse of Prithvi. The other elements also go back to their sources. And these are the mantras recited at the time of the Antyeshti Sanskar. Praying to these Devatas, please take it back, what you gave it. The dead body is bathed, newly clothed, taken to the cremation ground, where it is laid down. So that's when the mantras are chanted, which are addressed to these devatas. The spirit is invoked to throw out from its body its 5 prans, vital airs. They may mingle with their counterparts in the external air. The body is then addressed to dissolve itself with its fire material, components of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, where it originally arose. I'm talking about this Hindu ritual, which is called Antyeshti or the Antim Sanskar. That's when the body is offered to fire. But the spirit, the soul, has driven out of the body way before that. And it is onward march to beyond. The respective functions of the organs are blended with the presiding god. The sight goes to the sun god. From where it had its power of vision, sun god. Speech goes to the fire, the Agni Devta. Life breath to the air. The ears into the quarters. Body into the earth. Hair into the herbs. Hair of the head goes to the trees. Blood and semen into the water. This is the translation of those mantras. That's why we see God everywhere. God is the substratum, the creator, the sustainer, and there's no place where God is not. Vayu, the air, there is a physical air, then there's a subtle air, which is called a vital force. This prana moves the senses and our sense organs also. This is the subtle part, which travels in the vayu. Prana generates thoughts. Prana moves the body and causes locomotion also. Prana digests the food, circulates the blood, and excretes urine and the feces also. Prana causes respiration. It is through prana you see, hear, feel, taste, and think. That's why Vedas say the sum total of all prans is Brahma. Prana is the manifestation of Prakriti. So gross prana is breath. The subtle prana, which is carried through that gross prana, is the vital force. So just as there is the subtler body, which is a Sathul Sharir, and there's a Suksham Sharir. So gross and the subtle. And there's another Vayu, which is called Udan Vayu, which as yogi or a yoga aspirant, we should know that. Because this Udan Vayu draws out the subtle body from the gross body at the time of death. Udan Vayu. You remember there's a Pran, there is a Saman. there's a apan, there's a vyan, and there's a udan. So Udan Vayu draws out the subtle body from the gross body at the time of death. Udan Vayu is the vehicle of a transport for all prans. In fact, when we are living also, it helps the swallowing of the food. Even in our sleep, this Udan Vayu helps us. The immortal soul or Atma, which is the source and support for all the prans, mind, intellect, senses, and the body, abides in this chamber. This chamber is called the chamber of heart. In the Jivan Mukts, the people who are liberated, but while living over here, there's no question of any forerunner like the Udan Vayu. The liberated sages, with their minds purified by renunciation and with knowledge of the imperishable Atma, are completely absorbed at the time of death. So, in other words, if we have done enough sadhana, if we are familiar with this apparatus where we are living in, and who is living there, and what is the function of all these prans and the nadis are, only then we can be very comfortable when we are leaving this body. And then there's no return to the world for them. Because coming back is only when we have the desires. When there are no worldly desires, no attachment, we have attained that height of vairagya, which Rishi Patanjali called it parvairagya. See, just like there's two levels of devotion, two levels of vairagya also, apar and par. Parvairagya, supreme vairagya, then there's no coming back here again. Next week, we will talk about not about the liberated people, but for people like us who are still walking on this path, what remains after death? What becomes of the soul after death of the body? Where do we go? Because these questions spontaneously arise in our minds. Whether we put them in words or not, whether we discuss them or not, but these questions do come in our mind. It's like a soul's journey after death. Where will we go? Or even where did we come from? If we were before and we will be after, where were we before? And what will happen to us? Because we cannot understand this with this material mind of ours. We need the help of the scriptures, we need the help of the sages. And then ultimately we got to see, do we believe in it or not? Sometimes we start to argue right away without even realizing that we don't have that kind of a Gyan Chakshu yet, but we want to argue. So we are going to talk about all of this maybe next week also, and the week after that also. So today was just an introductory, just for you to think about this phenomena which we call death. And often we don't want to talk about it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for joining.